Welcome to TRB Live. That's right. It is the Resistance broadcast. And I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a really fun, good show for you today. Hopefully. A little confidence goes a long way. But we are here to talk to you about the latest Star Wars news, including some good news about Jake Lloyd, the actor who played young Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace. Our friend Clayton Standell spent a very long time working on this piece about Jake Lloyd. So go check it out for sure. It's Scripps News. We'll talk about that in a bit. But also, Rogue Squadron back from the production death table.
Oh my goodness. How did this happen?
So there's a lot to talk about. With me as always,
John,
James and Lacey.
what are you wearing?
Oh, it is one of the first shirts we ever designed. It is I Know What I Have to Do by Kylo Ren. I think we designed this shirt we designed before even Lacey joined the podcast. Like, it's a little snug on me, but it's showing the pipes pretty good today, so that's good.
You know what's funny about that shirt too is I just noticed this for the first time a few minutes ago, that it looks like Kylo Ren is crying.
Yeah,
in the shirt because of where the A is.
because he killed his dad.
I think so.
Yeah.
He's been so broken.
Yeah. So Snoke was right.
It's his emo album cover. I know
it split him to the
Kylo
core.
Ren. I know what I have to do.
Right. But he could easily slip in as the singer for My Chemical Romance, if need be.
That would be pretty cool.
Or a screamo band, just like more. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. It's seamless.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot to talk about. Obviously, James and Lacey with me as always. And for everyone who's joining us live, thank you. We are doing Ask the Resistance later in the show. So if you have a question, Star Wars question you'd like us to discuss on the show, just pop it in the chat. Use hashtag Ask the Resistance, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And of course, if you would like to support us with a super chat, you will punch it and light speed all the way to the front of the line and get your comment read on the show immediately. Or if it's a question, you'll be the first in Ask the Resistance. But more importantly than anything, we hope you just have a good time. It's all about having fun here on TRB, talking about Star Wars because we love it so much. But sometimes it feels like more often than not lately, there's a little bit of bittersweet stuff to talk about, even some sad news. And Captain Nita, apologies certainly accepted. Michael Culver passed away at 85. One of the cooler Imperial officers in Star Wars, just because what he brought to the table to elevate the character of Darth Vader and losing the Falcon and all the stuff that character helped employ with the plot of Empire Strikes Back. But yeah, Michael Culver passes away at 85. Also a Shakespearean actor. It seems like all these guys who played all the British guys who played small roles in Star Wars are all like these exceptionally trained Shakespearean actors. And people just know them as like, oh, you're Admiral Ozzel. Okay. Whatever. But rest in peace to Michael Culver, Captain Nita. So he'll always be a legend in my eyes. But anyway, how you guys doing? All right?
I'm good.
Yeah. You still have not addressed the fact that you're wearing the helmet.
Oh, I almost forgot. Yeah. So I'm wearing the X-Wing helmet, specifically Red 5's Luke Skywalker, in honor of the resurrection of Rogue Squadron into the production or in development stages, which is a wonderful thing. So I had tweeted that I'm going to try to do the whole episode with this thing on. I set the over-under at 5 minutes. So I don't know if I haven't eclipsed that just yet. But anyway, keep an eye on the clock. But away we go, though. We have a lot to talk about. Anything you guys want to address or toss out there before we hop into some news?
No, I'm just pumped to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, we got a lot of news, so maybe we should just get to it.
All right, let's fire up the old Resistance report, James.
All right.
It's the Resistance.
So yesterday we did not get an episode of Bad Batch. We got 2 episodes of Bad Batch, episode 6 and 7. I'm not really sure why, where the thought process goes on like randomly what weeks to put double episodes out, other than like, a season finale or something. But yeah, 2 episodes, 6 and 7. Lacey, are you keeping up with the show, or are you still kind of sticking to it's not really for me? Maybe I'll watch it at some point.
I am not keeping up with it. I have
Okay.
2 children that are sick right now. I haven't been keeping up with anything.
Yeah.
Not even the Kardashians.
Nothing.
Yeah. I haven't talked to Kate like in, I don't know. That's a Middleton joke. Anyway,
Oh.
John, what do you think about episode 6
Oh,
and
so we're
7?
talking about Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
What do I think about Bad Batch? I think the Bad Batch has already sort of told us its ending. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm enjoying it. Now everyone knows, I'm not the person to go to ask about, how I feel about these shows, because I have never been a big fan of the clones. Now, the Bad Batch is different because they do have these very unique personalities. They're flawed, but they also have these great tendencies. So it makes them more endearing and likable. But at the same time, I'm still not fully finding myself like too worried what happens to them the way I do other characters in Star Wars, which is always a weight for me on like a scale. But I do find intrigue, obviously, in the Emperor chatter, and every time they were talking about the Emperor, my ears would perk up, because I know this obviously all has a lot to do with filling in gaps and fortifying this sort of post-mortem plan of the Emperors that we've seen peppered in other mediums and other areas as well. But the Omega thing and why she's needed, to me, just rang the bells of the same reason why we saw Grogu getting tested and all this stuff happening with midichlorians or whatever, which also, to me, and maybe people who are real heavy into the latest and greatest on the Force, it's a little cloudy for me, because on one hand, we have Dave Filoni saying like everyone can use the Force. You just have to train hard and practice and all that stuff. But then the other hand, there's still this obsession with this natural capabilities with the midichlorians. And I don't know if that just means it's easier for you to do it or what, but it seems like there is this obsession with the DNA and with the midichlorians and M counts, whatever era you want to talk about it in. But it's been enjoyable. It's a visually really beautiful show. So I think they're really doing a good job in evolving the animation style. The music is always pretty good. And it's overall a nice, fun show. And even my kids, I think, once in a while stop and check it out. So a thumbs up from the Bad Batch. It's, I'm not over the moon for it, because I'm cloned out. I've been cloned out for a long time, so I hope this puts a bow on the clones. But for the clone fans out there, I imagine this is really, really good stuff.
Yeah. For my complete thoughts, you can check out the Bad Batch reaction show, because I'm doing the regular episodes week to week. This one surprised me with it being 2 episodes. I actually recorded a reaction to episode 6, and then I started 7, and I was like, oh no, wait. And then I had to like put them together. But I just continually think that season 3 keeps getting better and better. I loved these episodes. I love that finally we're getting answers that we were wondering about back in Rebels, about, well, what happened to these clones, and they're now finally getting to what happened to these clones, so that's kind of cool. And like
That's
I said,
true.
I think the final season is like, they know it's the final season, so wrap everything up, pay everything off, and we're getting that just in slew right now. So
yeah,
very, very, very cool stuff. But I'm curious about this massive headline story. Patty Jenkins says that Rogue Squadron is back after a new deal has been made. When I say she says it, maybe we should pull up her actually saying it. You want to pull up her actually
I think
saying
I think that's for the best.
it?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that.
When I left Star Wars to do Wonder Woman 3, and I went and I started working on that, we talked about, okay, well, maybe I'll come back to Star Wars after Wonder Woman 3. So we did a deal for that to happen, started a deal, but I thought I was doing Wonder Woman 3. So when Wonder Woman 3 then went away, Lucasfilm and I were like, oh, we got to finish this deal. We finished the deal right as the strike was beginning. So I now owe a draft of Star Wars. And so we will see what happens there. You know, like who knows? They have a hard job in front of them of what's the first movie they're going to do. They have other directors who have been working, but I am now, I'm back on doing Rogue Squadron, and we'll see what happens. We need to develop, get it to where we're both super happy with it.
Let's take all the contract stuff and all the stuff about other. But you would be happy to do a Star Wars movie. That would be exciting if it worked out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Because of exactly what I'm saying. Star Wars is a beautiful, the emotion of Star Wars and what it stands for is something so beautiful in this world. And particularly what it could, in a moment that we're at right now, where Star Wars was born out of World War II, right? It's born out of how do you make a metaphor and talk in metaphor.
And George Lucas seeing war pictures of fighter pilots. Right?
Exactly. Right. And so in that way, I've always wanted to make a fighter pilot movie. It's been a dream of mine. I always had a hard time with it because I'm in love with the jets of the 70s and 80s, and that's not where the great dogfight stories are. And so, Star Wars becomes a great playground for that. I think Star Wars is so beautiful. So yes, if I can do something beautiful and do something that serves that audience and is great, I would love to do it. Of course,
Yeah. In the 80s, it's not where the big dogfights are. Anyway, we'll get to that. John
went to the danger zone.
Think of a movie about dogfights. When does it take place?
I am not entirely confident that Patty Jenkins knows about the Vietnam War.
Well,
she said Star Wars was born out of World War II, and I'm like, no, George Lucas has been on record saying it's a commentary on the Vietnam War, and she said dogfights didn't happen in the 70s, and that's where all the F-18s were doing their dogfights was during the Vietnam War. But anyway. This isn't a history lesson. This is Patty Jenkins is back. She is back.
Yeah. So, John, talk about this. Yeah. What were your thoughts?
Well, first off, the whole online. So it's funny. I feel like we sort of inadvertently started this news cycle. And I'm not, trying to pat ourselves on the back, but a listener of ours tagged us and said, "Hey, I was listening to this TC Turner Classic Movies podcast, and Patty Jenkins is on it. And she's saying she's back on doing Rogue One." So then I tweeted it out from TRB, and then a news account that follows us put a story out, and then it just, the kerosene lit the wick and away it went. But it's interesting because then you had people saying, I don't know if I believe this rumor, who may not have known that it was actually her saying it. And then you also have the my favorite people, or the ones who, have to remind everybody nothing is official unless Disney or Lucasfilm say it is. And I'm so glad that they are here to give us that clarity. But it's Patty Jenkins, the person saying, I have made a new deal. Lucasfilm came to me, and now we have a new deal. And what is different about this, because this clearly was the original deal fell through. They came back together, came to a new deal. And the reason why it's a new deal, she said she's creating a draft. She wasn't the writer the first time around. She was just going to be directing, and they had said they found a great writer, and
they were going to announce it.
They never wound up announcing who it was. Although it would have been funny if she was like, "It's me." But now she's writing, I guess.
She said she owes them a draft. Do you take that as she means she has to write it, or she has to hire the person who's going to write it?
I think she's writing it
and turn it in.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So she said,
which we aren't really confident with that, are we?
I don't know, not necessarily, but I am intrigued about all of this because this seemed pretty much in Rian Johnson Trilogyville, which means, what does that mean for that? Have things changed so much that we are revisiting other things that have seemingly been scrapped? But Rogue Squadron, an officially announced project that seemed to have been dead, clearly shifted things around, and now we have Patty Jenkins seemingly scribing this thing and directing it, so she's going to have even more control over it. Now, where it fits, I don't know, because she kept saying, "We'll see what happens," and that's not a confident statement.
No.
So and she said that that new deal was struck just as the strikes began which was last June. So we're almost coming up on a year when that new deal was struck, and this is really the first anyone's hearing of this.
So
and,
yeah,
and this is her now. This is a new podcast of her saying this, and she's saying, "Well, we'll see what happens." So to me, it's still very murky, but it seems like they're thinking, since we're shifting more heavily to movies, let's look at what we had and re-explore this one, because this was one of our more cooked ideas. So that's what I think where Rogue Squadron's at. I don't think this is a guarantee it's coming, but I think it's a step in the right direction. But her saying we'll see, and the fact that this is almost a year removed from when that second deal was struck or made, I'm still a little uncertain as to what's going to happen with this one. And where does it slot in? Because we know it's going to be Mandalorian and Grogu 2026 spring, December 2026 Rey Skywalker, and then I assume Filoni's movie or Mangold's in that third slot they have. So even if this does happen, we're looking at 3-4 years away.
Mhm.
yeah. I wrote out some dates, but I want to hear what you have to thought. What what you have to say, Lacey? What are your thoughts?
So years ago, back in time, we did an episode of directors we want to see, and I chose Patty Jenkins and Taika Waititi. Now, what many would say, "Wow, Lacey, great job," and yet neither of those directors have put out a Star Wars movie yet. So, am I really doing that well? That being said, I was pumped to see this news online.
They haven't even written one.
I know. I have to laugh every time an announcement like this comes out, only because we're so jaded as Star Wars fans now that we're kind of like, okay, yep, when we see it, we'll believe it. I did get excited because it's coming from her mouth, which makes me laugh. What John was saying, some people were like, yeah, I'll believe it when it happens, and it's like, okay, but like she's saying it out of her mouth, the words, she's saying it. But I understand that people are like, kind of like, okay, but does she really mean it? Is she telling the truth? I think we live in an age of disinformation that people are constantly double checking and or second guessing information that's being told to them. But this is something that's pretty unlocked. Now, there is like a little bit of wiggle room in that truth, in the sense that she could have a deal where it's, yes, she's getting an option for a movie, but she has to provide a script and agree to it and then get into production. So she might be like, yes, I'm on the big whiteboard of ideas, but that doesn't mean it's going anywhere. So she's trying to say, like, yes, I am still working on it. But I think this is also a little of PR on her part, because her last Wonder Woman movie wasn't really accepted very well. I'm not saying from me, I'm saying just in general. And then, they canceled Wonder Woman 3 with the new whole plan with DC. So
yeah,
I'm sure there's a little bit of saving face here where she's like, yeah, of course I'm still doing Star Wars. Like, I'm sure a phone call happened immediately after the news came out that the whole DC thing was happening or not happening with Wonder Woman, that she was like, get Lucasfilm on the phone. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Because you need to, work. But I really hope it happens. I was excited for her. I loved her little teaser video that, again, we all believe would have been played at Celebration in 2020, if not canceled. I like the concept of focusing on the fighter pilots and having that kind of moment, but we all collectively agreed that when Top Gun Maverick came out, it was like, maybe this is why Rogue Squadron hasn't happened yet, because this movie was such an absolute perfect movie. And I'm not just saying that to exaggerate. It's honestly in my top 5 favorite movies ever is Top Gun Maverick. So
Told you.
it's really hard, but it's not the first Top Gun, John. I still have a lot of commentary on that one, but Top Gun Maverick is absolutely perfection. And it's hard to think of how is Star Wars going to top that, because all I'm going to be doing is comparing it to Maverick. Now, they said they're going to make another Top Gun. I'm like, hells yeah, give me that movie. I'll watch it forever. So I think I think that she is, when she says she doesn't have a draft yet, it's because they literally had to scrap whatever she had because of Top Gun Maverick. I would bet that they had that meeting. They were like, so how are you going to do something? And she's like, oh, let me get back to you.
that is true.
But yeah, I think it's tricky, with Star Wars directors now, and we're going to get into the race stuff in a little bit, as in Daisy Ridley talking, and she hasn't seen a script either. So I'm kind of like, what script have they seen with
Yeah.
Star Wars movies that are coming out? But I guess we'll see what happens. I'm rooting for her. I'm rooting for everybody that's working on a Star Wars movie because more Star Wars movies is a good day for me.
Like literally everybody's writing. Taika's writing, Patty's writing.
Stephen Knight's
John,
writing.
John and Dave are writing.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Knight's the one that's doing the Daisy movie.
Yeah, Stephen Knight's writing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's wild. Nobody's making movies. They're just all talking about it.
James like, stop talking and start doing.
Stop talking and film something. No, I thought it was interesting. So I was looking at all the dates of this too. John, you're big into dates. There were some in August. There was rumors that the Wonder Woman movie might not happen. That they're like it's not currently in active development or whatever. And then in September, just right the next month, that's when the Rogue Squadron thing was like it's not in active development. So both of those were like not happening. And then that was September of 2022. And then in December of 2022, that's when Wonder Woman was officially canceled. So the rumors were true. But Rogue Squadron actually was done before Wonder Woman was done in the timeline. So it's weird because she's like, okay, so Rogue Squadron wasn't happening. I guess I get it. She was working on Wonder Woman. Maybe that started falling apart and then they canceled Rogue. I don't know. It's weird. But here's what?
Well, I think Rogue Squadron, like the initial attempt, was scrapped longer ago than
that could be
released. Yeah.
So then that all happens, and let's just say that she was working. She didn't get official word that Wonder Woman was done until December of 2022. Okay, so then it was 5 months later that she got back with Lucasfilm, and they struck up the new deal. Because the writer's strike was in May of 2023, like May 2nd. So within like 5 months. And then she still hasn't done anything for it yet since May. I guess she wasn't writing during that time. So September she started to, so I don't know. Anyway, it's been 6 months or something and nothing's happened with it yet, but it's probably not top priority. And I think I don't remember which one of you said it, but it probably is true that it's something along the lines of that it was straight up canceled. It was done. It's not happening. But then when other things fell through, she was like, can that maybe happen? And they're like, well, we'll give you a meeting,
Right.
Like we've already had the talks. We wanted to make it work. It wasn't working out. So you can jump to the head of line if you want, but we are going to be seeing other people. You know what I mean? Like we'll have the meeting and let's get you at least paid to work on script. That's fine. But we can't promise anything in the future for this movie. So I still kind of have a feeling that this doesn't necessarily mean that it's back confirmed. She's working on it. But it kind of makes me wonder, like, what else is Patty Jenkins doing right now? And maybe she's like just wanting to strike up that deal because she had 2 really good deals and both of them fell through. And she's like, oh, can I save one of them? Because the other one's not getting saved. And I don't think that was Patty's fault. I think that was the fault of the DC world and bringing in James Gunn to reboot and restructure everything. I don't think it's anybody's fault for that happening. I think they're just like, look, the last one didn't do well financially and we're moving away from that stuff anyway. Like with Aquaman
they made Aquaman 2 because Aquaman 1 made like $1 billion. I think the biggest thing that canceled Wonder Woman 3 was that Wonder Woman 2 was bad. And I say that as my opinion, but also that it just released straight to Max. It was just a disaster and how that was put out.
That's right. It did go right to Max. It didn't go on theaters, right?
Yeah. It was just a no-go across the board, and that probably just soured everything, especially adding the cherry on top that DC was going to be closing out that canon or whatever.
I don't remember. Did it go straight to Max? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was like 2020.
It was 2020, yeah.
Was it? Interesting.
Yeah.
And then even it's just a side note is the thing I'm hearing now that they're working on Peacemaker season 2, but it's like it's gonna continue from, or it's gonna keep going, but the first season is not canon anymore because the new season takes place in the new world that they're creating, but it's the same character. I don't know. It's weird, man. It's like they have successful stuff that they want to carry on, but then they're like, but we're rebooting everything, so we have to figure out a way to make it all work. It's interesting, but hey, I want to talk about some good news in Star Wars because, as you talked about at the beginning of the episode, John, our good friend Clayton Sandell had been working on this story for a while, and he was able to have a conversation with the mother of the Star Wars child actor Jake Lloyd from The Phantom Menace, who only appeared in one Star Wars movie, but has been, part of the legacy for so many people, and yet his own mental health problems took away his opportunity to interact with those fans and be a part of the Star Wars world. So we were able to learn more about what's going on in his life since he's been so pulled away from, any type of social media or social presence, public presence for so long. And we got a lot of things cleared up that have been rumors and just sort of fan speculation for nearly 20 years now, but over 20 years now, really. So I love that this story happened. I want to thank Clayton Sandell for doing it. And let's just talk about it really quickly. Lacey, did you get a chance to read the article?
I did, but I actually want to hear John's thoughts first.
Yeah, John, tell us what you think about how all this unfolded and what we learned.
Yeah, so I know I congratulated Clayton on it, and just said he killed it and all that stuff, and he had been working on it for a really long time, I guess. And with the amount of time he probably put into it to get the information he was able to get is pretty astonishing, but also because it's good news, because Jake Lloyd has, I guess, inherited certain, mental health disorders, or I don't know what the technical terms are. I'm not an expert whatsoever in this stuff, but the schizophrenia and all that stuff, I guess, is something that ran in his family. And I really appreciate that his mom wanted to really clear the air, because Star Wars still actually means a lot to him. So I think there was this stigma that he didn't like Star Wars anymore. He felt Star Wars screwed his life over, and that Star Wars is the reason he had these issues. And his mom's like, no, that's not the case at all.
Fan backlash specifically.
Yeah, he loves Star Wars. We sheltered him from all of that stuff back then. There was no real social media. There was like AOL and stuff, but they didn't have him around it. He was happy-go-lucky, thought it was a great experience. So none of that was a thing. And I'm glad that she cleared that up. But then also the fact that he's still vested in Star Wars today, and he likes Ahsoka and stuff like that, and being able to hear, where he's at today, even though, as far as I understand it, he wasn't available to speak to because he's in a place to get better at the current moment. But I think he's around like 35 years old or so. But ultimately, I like the fact that he seems to be heading in the right direction. They're finding stuff that works for him, and I just hope all the best for him. And it doesn't sound like it's a situation where, like a Hayden Christensen, where it's like, oh, maybe he'll want to get back into acting and get back into Star Wars and stuff. But I think it's pretty obvious, if he ever was to return to, say, even a celebration or something, he'd probably get the largest ovation out of anybody that's ever gotten an ovation. More than Hayden Christensen, more than anybody, because there's nothing that people want to do, especially in Star Wars, when someone's struggling or something, is wrap your arms around them and embrace them when they're going through something really tough. Like Ahmed Best, when he revealed that he was suicidal and all that stuff. Remember when he came back, the ovation he got. So I'm just happy that, and I don't know that Clayton would have put out the story if it was like bad news. So, I'm sure he put a lot of thought into that too. And all of our listeners already know Clayton and how he's just the proest of pros, and more people should be like him when it comes to doing this type of stuff, and how he handled it so well. But Again, my final thoughts on it are just that I'm happy to hear that at least he seems to be doing better, Jake Lloyd, and I hope that continues for him. And if he ever feels comfortable to surface again, I think that'd be a must see, and there won't be a dry eye in the room if that was the case. So all my best to him. But I'm glad to see that he still likes Star Wars as we do. He's just a fan like us, and that none of the stuff that was, because Phantom Menace got annihilated by critics, and people forget that sometimes because now it has that glow to it, that rosy glow for nostalgia. But I'm glad that his parents did the right thing and sheltered him from all that, and for us to know, because I didn't know, that none of that stuff had an impact on something that was quite seriously hereditary and something that seemingly was unavoidable for him due to his generational line.
John has spoken. Lacey, what are your thoughts?
I just want to give him the first heads up because he's the one that brought up this story with Clayton. So first of all, Clayton did an amazing job per usual. We love Clayton here. He's one of the best in the business. He took this story and told it the way it should have been told, with care and understanding, and in just a really good way. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Clayton. That being said, it's nice to know that he was sheltered from all the negativity that came out. I'm going to be honest, I was young at the time, so I didn't see the negativity that everybody's talking about, but I know it now that I'm older. At the time, I loved the Phantom Menace. I still love the Phantom Menace. I loved Anakin. Little Annie was my favorite character with Padme in that movie. I would run around in my house pretending I was Annie or Padme all the time. Like, I loved that movie. So I don't really understand the hate that it got from people. I understand it now that I'm older and I've seen similar hate for all different types of things and fandoms. That being said, it is sad to hear what he's gone through, but it's also nice to know that those things didn't impact that it was completely something related to his own family and his own health, not something that would drive him to the point of being unhappy like it did with Ahmed Best. That being said, I really appreciate how, like I said, how Clayton handled it, because mental health is something that I think has become a topic that's talked about more openly nowadays, but still not the way it should probably be covered. I think sometimes it becomes buzzwords or like a hot topic, or like, oh, I'm feeling so blank today, but it's not talked about in a serious way like this article is. And I appreciate that. I applaud his mother for speaking out for him and for taking care of him and loving him the way that a mother does. I appreciate that. And like John said, I really hope he does eventually make his way back to a Star Wars convention. I feel like he would get the love and support that he assumes, I'm sure, that he would always get anyway, because he's a Star Wars fan too. And it's nice to know that he has a positive memory and the ability to engage with Star Wars in a positive way, which is nice, because oftentimes I myself am someone that struggles from like crazy anxiety, and I know that Star Wars is something that's always been kind of like a security blanket for me, or like a comfort that helps me get through tougher times. So I would hope that that's how he views Star Wars as well. And from this article, it seems like it is. So that's great. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have very similar thoughts. I definitely know that I was in the boat of thinking that part of these mental health issues were because of fan backlash. I'm glad to have new information now and know that that is not the case, and that it was, as stated in the article, like, was inevitable and was probably going to happen no matter what. And to know that he was sort of shielded from all that stuff. And I don't know how he stands now, like if he knows about that people didn't like his performance now that he's older. Maybe he's learned that or something. I'm not really sure, but irrelevant to the story, that he's been in and out of different types of treatment, but only the most recent treatment that he is currently in right now has seen the biggest progress in fighting it. So this is the best we've ever seen him, and he still has time to go. Maybe he'll come out on the other end even better than he currently is, which is great news. And like you said, or like it was stated in the article, like we've been talking about, the chance that he comes back. I mean, I think it was specifically stated that it's not in the cards right now in the current state, but if he, if continues to get better, man, just I don't know, just what an incredible thing. Like I would applaud a photo from a day that he went to the set, or anything. Like seeing him just in that article, just pictured with his mom with the Ahsoka toy, I was like, it felt, it was weird.
He looked good
felt to me like somebody back from the dead or something, like I was like, he's alive. There he is, like he's real. So in some ways, the fact that he's so important in all of our lives because he was in that movie and because we've been watching him on screen, and then to just like go away, like never talk to interviewers, never have any pictures taken of him, didn't die. There's no article. There's no closure there. He's still out there. It's just kind of one of those wild things. And then you see a picture of him and I'm like, he has a beard. It's wild. It's just such a cool thing. I was really tickled by the story. I loved it. And totally and completely props to Clayton, who is a diehard Star Wars fan and who knows, like, as a Star Wars fan, this is the story I want to seek out. I want to learn more about the guy who was wearing pink shorts in the desert holding the microphone. Like he knows who he wants to learn more about in Star Wars. And then he finds that information. And when he finally does, as a fan, because he has that access and that ability to get it, he then releases that information to the rest of us. So we all are just living sort of vicariously through Clayton at that point, who has the means and capability and talent to make it happen. So
that young man has a bright future.
Bright future.
Yeah. He's going places.
And he got to go to Casa Bonita, so he's really winning.
We shall follow his career with great interest.
I once saw him approach a murderer.
Yes.
Oh my God. I immediately responded and was like, no, don't do that. What are you doing? Online and like in Cats. I was like, no, watch out. What are you doing?
I once saw Clayton walking through the riots in, what was it, like
China?
Was it China? Where was he? Hong Kong?
And he was wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
He always is so great. He's like walking through. He's like, so we're here. And it doesn't look great. It's like,
and he's gigantic. Like he's
is.
so tall. So there was a clip of him, like you said, James, going after that like murderer guy in Colorado, and he was like outside, and I immediately knew it was him in the video because he's towering over everyone. And I was like, is that Clayton? That's Clayton. Oh my God, Clayton.
We've been saying Clayton over and over again. Also, shout out to Scripps News for having him write the story for them, picking up the story, letting him do it, all that stuff. Scripps News is where you can find the article to learn more about Jake's current states. Guys, by the way, after we finish up Resistance Report, we do have another story. We are going to be doing Ask the Resistance. So if you can, go ahead and throw in the chat or in the comment section, wherever you guys want, but put it in with hashtag Ask the Resistance. Give us something that we can talk about at the end of the show. Ask us a question. We do have a super chat, which is allowed to jump to the front. Lacey, what's the super chat?
So the super chat, of course, is from our boy Freezy2324. What up, man? Thanks for the super chat. He said, I'm going to be a dad this month. Congratulations. Wow. Oh my God. You see how my voice just got annoying? I'm so happy for you. No, that's like genuine excitement.
That's crazy.
I don't know if you're saying you're going to be a dad as in this is more than one child, or like this is your first kid. If it's your first kid, get ready. It's going to change your life. If it's your second, you're never going to love anything more than both children you have. It's insane. Have you bought any of your kids or brought any of your kids to celebration, or would you?
Should we save this? for Ask the
We
Resistance?
can save it for Ask the Resistance. So, Freezy, we're going to hold on to that. But congratulations again.
Congrats!
We're so happy for you. Everybody blow up the chat for Freezy. Let's go. Let's.
Is
give
it going to
him
be a
some
Freezy
congratulations.
Junior? Is what I'm going to ask a question back at you, Freezy.
Freezy Junior.
Yeah. Oh, it's his first one. Yep. Enjoy. You're gonna be so filled with love and so exhausted at the same time.
Dude, go do everything right now. Everything you want to do for you, do it all right now. Go do it.
He's
Go do
kidding.
it.
It's so wonderful. It's
All
wonderful.
right.
Congratulations. One last story before we get to Ask the Resistance. This one comes from Deadline. Daisy Ridley doing interviews and talking about the new Star Wars movie that she is currently working on. She does mention, again, I think, haven't read a script yet. But she was asked specifically about the new characters. And I think where this comes from is there was the recent castings that we had talked about, kids, villains, things like that. So the question probably stems out of that. Any new characters? And she says, yes, there are new characters because, and I forget exactly how she worded it, but she's made it seem like they were going to introduce those characters at the beginning or something. She kind of alluded to something maybe about the movie.
They're introducing new characters. That's all she said.
Yeah. Well, she said, because I think they're going to do an she said something. It wasn't like,
I know bits and bobs. I know
Bits and
there's an
bobs.
introduction of new characters.
Bits and bobs.
So, hello everybody.
Did you watch the video?
These are new characters. Right
What?
here. It's John Cena.
James?
Yeah. Did you watch the video or did you just read the article?
They made a video out of that interview?
Yeah, they made a video out of that interview. Anyway, the point is that she was asked about kids, and she kind of quickly dismisses. She says, I don't think Rey has any kids because, she's a Jedi. And then she kept going.
So she gets that script.
Yeah. And the headline, yeah, that's true. She doesn't know. And then the headlines tend to be about the fact that she's not going to have kids. So kind of where are we out of this? Lacey, I know you were the one that had the biggest reaction to Rey possibly having kids. What are your thoughts on her saying she doesn't think she would have kids?
First of all, I feel bad for her because I watched the video clip and she looked so not wanting to talk about Star Wars at all. Like, it was so on her face that she was like, can we talk about anything about this? Because she has nothing to say about it, which she said numerous times. Yeah. Bits and bobs. Lots of things. She like anytime she's in front of someone, they're like, so Star Wars, and she's like, I literally know nothing. That being said, I love Daisy Ridley. I named one of my children after her. I adore everything about her. However, she has a track record of saying things that are not true about Star Wars movies, in the sense of she'll be like, this is what I understand is true. And then the next movie, she'll be like, I don't remember saying that, but this is actually what happened. And then the next movie, she'll be like, nope, it's always been this. And you're like, I'm trying to connect the interviews where you said these things, because she just speaks on what she knows at the time, which currently, right now, she doesn't have a script. She only knows bits and pieces of what the story is. But like John said, that could change. But I understand why she would say, hey, Jedi doesn't have kids, because that's true. Up until this point, Jedi don't have kids within the rules and confines of what a Jedi is. And we had that big discussion ourselves, the three of us, about children and Jedi and stuff like that. Now, that being said, personally, I would love to see it. I also think it would be interesting storytelling if she did have children. Is that going to make or break the movie for me? No. But I understand why she said this, and I've been hearing wonderful things about her movies that are coming out, and I can't wait to see them. But yeah, I said it before when we were talking about Patty Jenkins, which is, I am concerned that everyone seems to be writing these things and no one seems to be doing these things right now. So you have Donald Glover writing it with his brother. You have Taika, who's writing it, has a middle but nothing else, or doesn't have the middle and has the beginning and the end. And now Patty's writing something, and Sean Levy has a story, but he doesn't know what's going on. Ryan Johnson's over here, like way over there, going, yup, I'm still here overdoing it. And you're like, okay, Gotcha, Ryan. Yeah, but nobody's got these things in production, and now they've basically light speeded Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's movies to the front because they want to keep Grogu in the spotlight.
George Lucas wrote treatments that weren't used.
Yeah, it's kind of bananas, all these stories of people that have written things or done things, and then we just recently heard about one of these
George
directors
is hate
saying,
writing right now.
I know. One of the directors recently, I forget who it was off the top of my head. I'm sorry, my children are sick. I haven't slept in a week and a half. The gentleman, I think it's the guy from John Wick or something like that, where he said, "Oh, I wrote a whole story about, you know, a Mandalorian or Boba Fett," and then it ended up being like that's what they did anyway. After they were like, "Nah, we're good. We don't want your story." But yeah, it's just crazy. It's crazy to hear all these stories coming out from Lucasfilm. I hope directors and people in production keep giving these interviews and keep giving these stories. But as for Daisy Ridley, she doesn't know anything, and if she did, she's not going to say anything.
Was it Charles Stahelski?
Maybe. I feel like it was the John Wick guy, but I might be wrong. It was a couple people back to back. That
He's the John Wick guy.
Okay, might have been him then.
Might have been him. I think you're right.
He said something about Boba Fett, like he gave a whole story about Boba Fett or a lone Mandalorian, and then it was like literally the story of the Mandalorian. He likes Cub.
Yeah.
The Lone Wolf and Cub.
So he said he pitched a movie to Lucasfilm about that, and they were like,
they didn't want it.
Well, in my eyes, when it comes to this story, I think I'm still gonna stand on just the logical sense of exactly what she's saying, which is, you know, we've talked about it before, but like, she's a Jedi. This is the way the Jedi are, and if she's gonna be a Jedi, if she's gonna continue that, then she wouldn't be having kids. If she was having kids, then it would bring in that question of, well, then you're not really a Jedi. You're starting something new, right?
Right.
You could,
or
you
they
just call yourself something
redefining what
different.
it is.
Yeah, you're just taking the name and being something completely different. But you're still utilizing the name or whatever. But that being said, she does kind of seem like she's lying. To me, it does sort of read.
This before, it's all bets are off now. As soon as a couple people lied, when it was Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Lars Mikkelsen, as soon as all those people said, "No, I'm not doing anything," and it came out to be completely false, that opened up the door to anybody can just say, "No, I'm not involved."
Yeah, and she said she knew a little bit about it, and her words were something like it was an interesting different direction or new direction. I forget the exact quote, but okay, maybe the story is about her having kids, and she's like, oh, that's different, that's new, that would be a new direction. That's kind of describes what that is. I'm not saying it's the only possibility, but I'm saying if that were the case, if that's what she was told, then we get to this interview where she's asked about it, and she very quickly says no because of this very logical reason. I think if she were to know that the actual answer is yes and that is it, then she has a quick go-to way to brush it off. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry about that. But the thing is that sorry, if she were to even lightly allude to that would be cool, I'd like that or something like that, I feel like that would be giving fans false hope if it's not true. And if it is true, then they would be mad at her. Like, don't if people bring that up, don't say, here's why you think that would be cool, because you're leading people down the path that that's a thing. So I think it's possible that she's very quickly cutting off that rumor. Like,
she was very quick to be like, no, I don't know. Nope. I don't know what you're talking about. I have nothing to do with it.
She took the thing and she was like, well, I don't think that would happen because, you know, she's a Jedi, obviously. But anyway, and she like,
well, that could have been why she was annoyed, because maybe they nailed it. And she's like, ah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if you hear what it is and you're like, okay, people are probably going to have that. as a theory, what am I going to say when people bring that up? You have your like go-to answer. This just felt a little like quick, right to it. And maybe that's because she was a Jedi. She is a Jedi. You know what I mean? She did all of this deep training. So when somebody says, do you think that Rey's gonna be evil and kill people or something? She's like, no, I'm a Jedi. Like she's just cutting that off. Like that's not an option. So I don't know. But John, Leslie, what are your thoughts on Daisy Ridley's comments here?
Can I ask you a question really quick, John, before you start?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember being in Celebration and getting asked if we thought that Rey would have kids. And that to me was like, wow, I never even considered that. Now we're hearing it here. Is this like a popular theory now? Because I feel like the only time I ever heard it was when someone in the audience asked us. Am I going crazy?
I don't know.
I've never heard of this kind of theory popular enough that Deadline would ask it.
Who asked her? Deadline asked her this?
Deadline asked her. Some guy did at Deadline.
I mean, things go around. I don't know. Like
I just have never heard it outside of that, so I was just curious if you guys have seen it anywhere else, because I haven't.
I feel like I have seen it very briefly in certain places. Just like, you know, a Twitter post here or there where you're like, oh, I hope this or wish this happened in, you know, episode 9. But I think, like I said at the beginning, I think if I were to guess where this question came from, it probably is like, this is the first interview this person got with Daisy Ridley after the most recent Star Wars news about her property was that they were casting 2 kids and the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And then that has now probably popped into people's heads that if there's kids involved, is it possible that those kids are hers?
Yeah, I remember someone in our audience asking us at our panel in London, and then there's an episode of this really good Star Wars podcast from May 8th of last year, and the title of the episode was "Will Rey have kids in the next Star Wars movie?" The Resistance broadcast. Little plug. Shout out to them. But no, I'm
Good
kidding.
job, guys. You really nailed it.
I don't
have you on the show sometime.
It's a low-hanging fruit for Star Wars because, you know, all these people seem to have kids.
I just didn't know if there was like another story that came out, or because I hadn't heard of it for a while until this kind of guy was asking about it. And I was like, oh, is there something else that I missed?
I hope she's lying because I think Rey should have kids.
Me too.
Like, you want to do something different and you want to get like raise the stakes, have Rey have to protect her own while also, you know, the future Jedi and all that stuff.
Yeah, deal with the idea of like your own family and the kind of weight of destiny, and like you're the one that has to, kind of like the Spider-Man thing, like you have the job to take care of everybody else, but yet you also have your own life and your own kids.
Yeah, I saw Dani's comment that she thinks journalists lean into the fanfics.
They totally do.
I think the fans who get the opportunities to ask questions do that. I don't know how much about like the actual journalist people leaning into that.
The
stuff.
click people, the ones getting the sound bites for TikTok and stuff.
People, yeah.
They're looking at fan fics and
they are
fan theories and stuff to get those sound bites, which seemingly, like James brought up in this article, there is a quick sound bite, portrait style, very TikTok-ish. That's why I think they would ask this question, is to get clicks.
All right. So
Sorry,
my thoughts. No, yeah, my thoughts on it. I don't have a lot more to add, but I hope she is lying because I do want her to have kids. I think that'd be cool. I think changing the way Jedi can live is a smart thing to do because we saw what happens with the confined roles and Anakin having to be sneaky and everything that happened thereafter with that. Like if Anakin was allowed to marry Padme and have kids, none of that may have happened. So I just think a natural evolution of that would be cool and a fresh twist because Jedi are really boring. The dogmatic elements of being a Jedi is just really boring. Even that building is boring.
So mad when you say that.
Yeah, but look at that. Like imagine walking into the Jedi temple and you're like, oh, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm just saying, every time you say it on an episode, we get like 13 comments of people being like, Shut up, John. They're not boring.
All right,
Yeah.
but can people
Even-
also just
I don't like
chill
that comment
out
either.
and like realize I'm being
Honestly.
tongue in cheek? Like
Yeah.
I have bills to pay. Like this isn't that serious. Like I love this stuff more than
I
anything.
think you do
but
find them boring, and that's okay. I'm not
They
debating.
are boring, but it's also
But
like
I'm saying don't walk that back. Say it with your chest, John.
I'm saying with my full chest in this shirt that clearly doesn't fit me as well anymore. But I will say, and I know what I have to do, but I don't know if the strength to do it. But, Jedi are boring, but I still love them very much. But anyway, and we're going to talk more about Jedi on Monday and why they're also bad at other things. But I hope she's lying. I hope she has kids. I'm more annoyed that we're not getting any updates at all, and the fact that she hasn't read a script yet. Like I don't want to hear.
Or has she?
I would be annoyed with her, annoyed with this too, if like she's asked again and she doesn't have information to provide. So she may be even a little annoyed that she doesn't have things to say, because I think this might be a little bit of a mistake, because she has a couple of movies that she's promoting that have nothing to do with Star Wars, and she's a very charismatic person in all of these interviews. If she had the opportunity to be a vessel for this new Star Wars idea and actually tangibly give other audiences who were not, diehard Star Wars fans a peek into what they might be doing with her movie, that's a good thing. But because she doesn't have any info, it's a wasted opportunity. So now the only time she'll have the opportunity to do so is when she's on the Star Wars circuit. So this again goes back to the whole secrecy thing, and maybe it's a schedule thing, but like you walk her out there on a stage a year ago, you have to have something to confidently have done that. So give her something to give us so that we can get excited and get other people excited. Like that's how this stuff goes. Look at Barbenheimer and how people got excited about a movie they probably didn't give two what's about because of the whole viral pairing thing. They need to evolve in how they bring us in. Let like it's like that whole Jerry Maguire thing. Help me, help you. I'm not saying, we're going to move the needle ourselves, but if everyone who loves this stuff is given some information, the actors are given information, and they can get that out to other audiences of theirs that are not us, like diehard Star Wars fans, that might help get more people interested, especially if we're starting this new fresh story that has this blank canvas that can be very easy for people to just slip into. So that's all I got.
And if I were her, I would be a little frustrated too, because I think this time where she's talking about it, but there's no script, and she has to keep repeatedly saying that she hasn't read a script, I think it makes her look bad as an actress.
That's what I said. Yeah.
You said that?
Yes.
That's what he was just saying.
I said she might be a little annoyed that she has no information to give every time she keeps getting asked about this stuff.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying the fact that like the number one thing that you ask actors like how they choose a project is they don't sign on until they've read the script, because that is like the most important thing to them. And I feel like the more she's out in the public saying that she's signed on to this and she doesn't even know anything about it, she's not, I think it drops her credibility for her choices here to join the project. And when we get it later and she says like, oh, I read the script and it was amazing, like, but I know that's not why you're interested in doing the movie. You're interested in doing the movie because of a paycheck and stuff. And every time she's asked this question, it like hurts to hear her go, I haven't read a script, because I'm like, that's such a bad thing to say.
Well, she said she signed on because of the story idea that they gave her, which she's not going to divulge details on. So she knows the premise beyond what we know. She just doesn't know the full story because it hasn't been fully fleshed out.
Yeah. But like I said, I think that every time she says it, I think it makes her look bad. And if we're me in that situation and I had to continually divulge that I was signed on, but I don't really know anything about it, I feel like that would make me look bad. So I don't know. I guess you guys don't agree, or maybe you do. I don't know.
No, I hear you.
That's it for Resistance Report, and we have some questions. I know we at least have one from Freezy. So let's get into Ask the Resistance.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
All right. Thank you all so much for sending questions in the live chat or via super chats. So we will get to the super chats first. That's how this goes. You hit the hyperspace lanes and you get to go first. So the first one is Freezy. And he did ask us, again, congrats again, Freezy. I'm very happy for you.
So pumped.
Have you any of you brought your kids to Celebration, or would you? None of us have yet. So my answer is maybe when my kids are older, but not remotely close to this age. I need them to be able to be relatively independent. How about you guys?
Same.
Yeah. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, it's just, I think all of our kids are probably too young at this point. And most of the time they've been nowhere near the, like, we're going to fly to get here. And like Bennett doesn't even really, he likes Star Wars in theory, but he's not like obsessed with it to a point where I would be like, you got to come to this thing. And then also between the three of us, usually when we're at Celebration, we're like working and like focus and doing this stuff, and like to have family members there and trying to split up the time also wouldn't be great. So unfortunately, I feel like our family members sort of miss out on that one thing, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because none of our people are really super pumped on Star Wars anyway. If that kind of makes sense. That's my answer.
Yeah, my family and friends don't like Star Wars. My older sister and her husband like it, but they haven't been to a Celebration yet. But as for my kids, they're way too young to go to something like this. And that's not any disrespect to people that do bring young
No, not at all.
children or their babies. I see people with babies strapped to them, dressed up. It's adorable. This is only a reflection on myself that like I wouldn't be able to handle them being there. And then like James said, we when we go to Celebration, while we are there to have fun, have a good time and geek out and be Star Wars fans, we are also there to kind of work and like promote the podcast and deliver content and news to you guys at home that couldn't be there. We see it as, you know, a big kind of, it's our Super Bowl. It's our big weekend of the year that we put in hours and hours and hours and hours of work into it. Then we're there 24/7. So like we're always on. And then afterwards we're just doing recaps. So while we have a blast going to stuff and meeting everybody and just like hanging out with other people that love Star Wars as much as we do, it is definitely something that it's like we're working. We're doing our job and we're trying to do the best we can for you guys at home. So yeah, right now, currently, I couldn't see bringing my kids. However, I think if my daughter still stays interested in it, like she is right now, she's only like 2.5. So once she gets older and wants to go, I would totally bring her with me. My husband has no interest whatsoever. And my son is 4 months, so he can't really tell me anything.
Right.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. But congratulations again, Freezy. Send us an email, Freezy.
Yeah.
I want to chat
And I think your kid would be about just will have turned a year old. I think at that point.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll never forget when we had our event at the brewery in Anaheim, and there was like this 2-year-old little Ahsoka at our event, and we thought that was the cutest thing in the world. She was there with her dads, and like, so yeah, I'm doubling on what Lacey said. Like me saying like I wouldn't bring my kid is because I probably couldn't handle it. I'm not saying I'm
already anxious enough. Like,
yeah, I love seeing little Grogus and all that stuff. So bring your kids, absolutely, if you can handle it.
I would bring Bennett to like Comic-Con or something.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
because we would go and we would have no pressure of like, if we did, it would be like I have to slip away for like one interview thing or something, maybe, but like even then it would just be like the rest of the weekend or majority of it is just like hanging out, going to booths and doing things with the kids. That's fun. That's a good idea. Yeah, do that.
Yeah. But if you are considering it, I'd wait till Celebration comes back to the US. Just
yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go to John Mitchell, and we're gonna double dip on John here. Thanks for the super chat again, John. We appreciate that. So we'll answer both of his questions. Last week he punched one in just as we were signing off.
Literally, right?
Oh, that's right.
So the first question. Well, let's knock the first one out of the way. He said, "Do you guys think Luke will be in John's movie or Dave's movie?" And I think we've talked about this already. So I'm just gonna say John's because of the Mando connection. What do you guys think?
Oh,
I'm gonna say John's, and I think it's definitely gonna happen.
yeah, John's as well. Because I think they want to come back to Star Wars with the biggest bang. And if there's a rumor that you got to go see this movie, or they put it in the trailer, whatever they do, I think like Luke being in that movie is going to be a huge draw. And I even went further where on a recent question, I said, I think they might even bring Ben Solo into it for that reason.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure.
Because it's right around that time. It's like within a year or something.
That's a really de-age Adam Driver for that.
I don't think they would. I think
They just shrink him down.
They did have him as a baby
Yeah.
on SNL, so.
Oh,
They actually just take out like a portion of his chest. Just
oh boy. All right, and then John's other question was, do you think there will be a George Lucas biopic drama? Do you guys say biopic or biopic? I say biopic.
Biopic.
yeah.
Biopic drama movie one day about his life and leading up to creating Star Wars and how it changed everything. What do you guys think? Lacey, what do you think? A George Lucas biopic?
Yes, but it's not
Okay.
going to be serious. It's going to be like a joke type, lighthearted one, a la Adam McKay.
Okay. James?
I think that someone eventually will probably do a George Lucas movie talking about his life and stuff that happened around that time. But I don't see it being high production. So follow me here. Probably more like Steve Jobs with Ashton Kutcher and not Jobs with Michael Fassbender. Does that make sense?
I guess so. Yeah.
Both are like fine, but one clearly like went the extra mile and got the bigger distribution and was like a more thought out heavy movie, and the other one was fine but just was like a little less budget, a little more under the radar. I don't
Where's my
even know if
iPad?
that was released in theaters or not. But anyway,
I don't think there will be a George Lucas biopic because I don't think he would want someone else to tell his story, and he probably has already made this movie, but he won't release it.
Yeah, that's true. I want to know if he's really making movies.
It's him interviewing himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's like, so what would you think? And it cuts to him being like, well, it was a tough time for me. People
like-
didn't believe me. And
It's like Jack from 30 Rock when he's doing videos for his kid.
yeah,
Like, today you're turning 18 and, I'm going to tell you about the
Michael
presidency
Scott.
or whatever, Yeah.
You guys talk about these shows nobody's watched. I don't understand it. But
okay, 30 Rock has been watched by a lot.
I'm kidding. No, I don't think he'll do it. I think he'd be. I'd be very shocked for him to give the rights for someone else to tell his story, especially like the way Hollywood just completely slaughters these biopics.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like Bohemian Rhapsody. Oh, trash.
Marilyn Monroe.
Best
Oh.
editing.
Oh my
I can't believe
god.
that one
Yeah.
best editing. It was such a joke.
Rami
Anyway.
Malek beat Bradley Cooper for Best Actor. Bradley Cooper actually wrote and sang songs.
I know. And Bradley Cooper got snubbed again this year, and he looked like he wanted to cry.
Bradley Cooper's going to have to play Van Gogh and actually cut off his own ear to maybe win an Oscar at this point. It's just ridiculous. All right. Where are we at? We have David Ford, who says, thank you, David, very much, who says, we named one of our dogs Daisy Ray in honor of both the actress and her character. The hate came as a shock since she's a great character. Agreed.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
She's
David.
I like that name, Daisy Ray.
That's what I was going to name my daughter. It's not that.
We named our daughter Daisy, but not after Daisy Ridley. All right. We'll go with one more question, and it's going to be from the wonderful JG from Space, who asked, what's your most anticipated future Star Wars project in any capacity, any medium? James?
TVs, games. Well, I mean, it's not going to beat a movie. TVs, games, books, etc. Movies, I don't know. This switches all the time because it's so unknown right now. But I'll say the now I can't think of it. James Mangold project.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Acolyte and the Daisy movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ray movie. I just
Oh, and
I hope
Skeleton Crew.
I hope they put something really cool together for that and get like that hype and communal feeling going leading up to it. Because I was watching TFA the other day. I'm like, man, that was such a feel good time. I wish we could just bottle that up and all drink it.
I wanted to say, well, let's take out these like the Taika Waititis and stuff like that, like something that is like tangible, we know is happening. But there's literally only it's like Andor and Acolyte. I think that's it. That's the only things that are tangible that are coming up. There's no animated project. There's no like Bad Batch season 4.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't even have any idea.
All right, that is it for Ask the Resistance, which means it takes us towards the end of our show. So first off, we want to thank everybody for listening or watching, whoever you take in our episodes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed on your preferred podcast app, whether that's Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever. And then, of course, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@theResistanceBroadcast. Subscribe free there as well. And, of course, we'll be doing TRB Live just like we are tonight. Basically every week. And if you want to support TRB, make sure you are following us on social media, TRB Podcasts, of course, but also patreon.com/resistance broadcast. In addition to the podcasts we put out twice a week publicly, we also have exclusive episodes just on the podcast feed, as well as a lot of other interactive stuff with our community, including casual, non-recorded, just monthly hangouts. We have a Discord server for tiers 3 and up. Just go check it out. Patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Tiers start at just $5. If you're able to help us out, it goes a long way. We appreciate it very much. Special shout out to the Generals and Spice Runners. The Patreon pod race is making a return on Monday, folks. And our oldest running General, Carmelo, will be doing that on Monday. So welcome back to that segment. Welcome back to MELO. And a thank you to Carmelo, John RISI, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Rumore, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Colin Cormier, Dave Hornack, and Jolton Jedi DiMaggio. And the Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, KENDALL, GELNER, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the Fort Worthian. For me, social media at Johnny Hoey, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. Go find it on your pod apps. James, how about you?
Social media at Myra Trunks, and currently weekly on the Bad Batch Reaction Show every Wednesday morning.
Check it. Lacey.
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gilleran and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gilleran, as long as it's still in the US.
Right. TikTok, tic-tac-toe. All right. We hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. And we'll be back with you on Monday with a cool discussion and some other fun stuff right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.